party down, location mysterious. Wanna rock this con like my man James Tiberius. Jesse and Marina, they're mad clever like the Negus. Gonna guide you through the scenes, beam from London to Las Vegas. Where to go, how to dress, when to sleep, who to see. Celebs not to miss, Sardis Wong and SMG. Star Trek into awesome, build some memories at last. Set the proper course, the Shore Leave Podcast. Boom.
Welcome to Shore Leave, your Star Trek Convention Community Podcast. This is Marina Kravchuk, one of your co-hosts, and with me is always the amazing Jesse Okendo. Jesse, how are you?
Hello, I am doing well, and I am excited to hear what you all did at Mission Chicago, since I didn't do anything except be jealous. But you kept it real. Like, I loved everything I saw, so I can't wait to hear your first person, reactions to everything you did.
Yes, and we with us have a returning wonderful friends of the show, Heather Barker and Ron Robel, our co-admins from the Star Trek Convention Experiences groups. And how are you? I mean, this has been, we definitely have a lot to talk about, but first of all, it's been great to see both of you in person, and just generally welcome back to the show.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
I am so tired. I am so tired, but yes, after the last convention I attended was STLV 2019. So since then, I had seen no one. Marina, you were one of the first people that I saw. That was Kismet. I saw Ron, I think the Friday morning before things were happening. And on the outer end of it, like, my heart is so full. So it's so worth the being tired to have gotten to see everyone.
Absolutely. I'll say, I think I saw Marina and Heather, both of you, for about 5 minutes each. And that was a lot more than other people. Like, it's just 3 days flies by so quickly.
Yeah, it was truly a whirlwind. I mean, I don't know. It feels like I hugged and kissed probably a couple of hundred people, because it almost seems like everybody came to Chicago. Well, almost everyone. So it's been a delightful reunion in many ways. So, because, you're just walking through the crowd and every 5 minutes you see a familiar face. So it was exhausting, but exhilarating at the same time. So as our listeners have gathered, we're here to talk about Mission Chicago, the new licensed event, which I know that there has been a lot of talks before where people were confused, what's going on, what's not going on, who are the guests, what's happening. And then finally, everything more or less resolved within the past several weeks, but basically within like a month before the convention start. And we actually got a pretty amazing and pretty successful show at the end of it. So why don't we just start out with like an overall impression? So we've had this crazy 3 days. Your thoughts, just, sort of like first impression, overall impression, hit us.
Yeah, I'll say it was, like I said, quick. It was hard, having been to STLV for a few years, not to compare everything to STLV. So I think I've always said the Vegas convention, 5 days, it's far too long. Well, 3 days is not enough. So maybe that hotspot's 4 days, but just so much fun. I think everybody left feeling recharged, and just these events re-energized my fandom, and it definitely was the case here. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great talent. The fact that they were so last minute in the guest announcements, I think, was kind of fun. It kept us waiting until the last minute for really some good surprises when we got there.
Yeah, same. I don't know how to say it better than that. In addition, I had never been to that facility before. I can imagine that maybe during the Star Wars celebrations, it seems super crowded, but thankfully the attendance was nowhere near overwhelming in that way. Like, the McCormick Place, that whole convention center was humongous. And I don't know what the attendance numbers were. I know they were estimated to be towards 8,000, and I'm not sure we got that many a day. Maybe over the 3 days there were that
I think
many?
it was over 3 days, because
Okay.
I heard that Friday had about 2,000. Saturday definitely looked like it was at least twice as full.
Yeah.
And Sunday, obviously, there was the usual dip. So I think we probably hit somewhere in that range with 8,000.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right. The place was cavernous. That I heard that repeated several times online. People are like, well, it's like being inside this enormous airy place. And I personally found it very pleasant, because you didn't have this whole, if you imagine a typical Comic-Con when everybody's very close together, which let's be real, right now almost nearly every convention, I think, is under capacity. So you don't get that kind of usual crowding. But nevertheless, it was kind of like you could always very easily run from one place to another if you needed to get from photo ops to the main theater. And there wasn't any kind of crazy queuing, and we certainly found ourselves in a situation where everybody managed to get a seat in the main theater. So that kind of like this temporary under capacity situation has been actually very, very well, it was wonderful because again, everybody got a chance to basically go wherever they wanted to go and see whatever they wanted to see.
I knew that for me, like being around so many people for the first time might be very overwhelming, and I didn't struggle with that at all. I stayed at the Hyatt Regency, and walking from there over to the convention center, it really wasn't that bad after the first couple of trips. And so that was nice as well.
Yeah, I actually tried to time myself just to compare roughly like the usual, like if you picture yourself going from Ipanema Tower through the convention way to the main facilities in Rio. And I'd say it's probably the tower that I was in Hyatt, I think it was actually shorter a little bit, or maybe roughly the same, very close, but I would bet it was actually shorter. The whole thing, incidentally, the fact that everything was connected to the convention center was very fortuitous. I know a lot of people found this a very comfortable way of like nobody had to go outside. I know a lot of people worried. A lot of people worried about the weather, and there was one day where it was very cold and we got a little bit of snow, but it's all, the four main hotels were all connected via sky bridges. So it was a nice thing, you just leave the jacket in the room.
I was just going to say, that's a huge, like when I go to Vegas, I usually stay at the Gold Coast. So not having to trudge across the street in 100-degree plus weather. If they could start building these indoor skywalks in Vegas, that would be fantastic because that was so nice.
Now, as far as the general layout, now, again, this is not... I kind of find myself like if we're talking about first impressions, because I have been actually in both Hyatt and I've been to McCormick, and I've done enough conventions of different kinds. I was looking at it kind of not so much comparing it to Vegas, but sort of like which components I recognize that I've seen at other conventions, both the ones that work and the ones that didn't work. And so it was more like a not necessarily critical perception, but it was an interesting sort of like detached way of looking at this whole setup, because I was very excited about this event when I bought the tickets way back in July of last year. And then of course I can totally see the sort of a trepidation for those who have never done this kind of event, sort of like, well, where are the guests? Where are the events? Why is nothing happening? And then everything obviously being announced at the last moment. But I liked the way they set up the interior spaces. It was actually very rational. We had the main theater on one side of this large promenade space, if you will, and then the showroom floor, the vendors, photo ops, autographs on the other side. And again, no crowding, everything seemed to work very nicely. I'm curious, like, did you do a lot just generally out of the usual convention activities? Did you do a lot, or did you actually spend more time basically hanging out with familiar faces?
I think for me, it depended on the day. Saturday, I seemed to have a lot of autographs and photo ops, and it was, the lines were a lot more manageable than Vegas. George, I didn't get anything with him, but he was walk up all day. I think the only folks we waited in line for were Ethan Peck and Anson Mount Sneak, with some of the newer folks. But the interactions with the cast at this convention too were so much more personable. At other conventions I've been to, they sign and then you walk away. With this, I didn't have a single autograph that wasn't truly personalized in a short conversation. Having said that, the first couple of days, I only think I did 2 or 3 panels throughout the whole 2 days, just on that whole day in the big vendors room. There were so many people to see and so much to say.
Yeah. What about you, Heather?
Yeah, okay, let me think about this. I think I saw 2 panels in the main theater the whole weekend, and I saw at least 2. I saw at least 2, participated in 2. So overall, I think I actually attended and saw more panels than I typically do in Vegas. However, I got to do none of the secondary, like, fun stuff, like seeing the Strange New World exhibit. There was a captain's chair photo op. I didn't make it all the way around the vendors room to talk to everybody because there were just so many people, not just STLV family, but Twitter pandemic family. This wonderful community really grew up during the pandemic, both Twitter, different Facebook groups, we all tried so hard to connect. And so there were a lot of new fans. This was their first Star Trek convention. And so I'm really honored to have gotten to meet a lot of people who this was their first trek into Trek, and it seems really successful for a lot of them. I know I've seen some criticism in the Facebook group, but from what I've seen, a lot of people really got that family connection that we talk about at STLV too.
And I saw a lot of, I bought tickets last year. I forgot I bought tickets. So it just showed up in the mail with a t-shirt and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to go, but I couldn't. But what I saw in the group more is a lot of first timers. Did you run across a lot of first timers?
Yes. Yeah. And it was absolutely, as Heather said, it was heartwarming to see sort of like this absolute delight in their faces, sort of like, I have found my tribe. We've all experienced this once you finally kind of get to this point where you go to your first Trek convention and you start making friends and just generally chatting with complete strangers, and they get you. I actually managed to do quite a lot of panels, surprisingly. Granted, my schedule kind of fell apart in second half of Saturday, because at that point they were having a little bit of issues of holding on to the schedule because of the delays with the photo ops. So things kind of eventually went out of the window. But I did manage to do all the main, like the big panels, the spotlights that everybody was waiting for, like the Strange New Worlds and Prodigy, and especially Lower Decks. I did quite a lot. I did wish to do more of sciences, because Dr. Erin McDonald did quite a few sort of like this, both the actual panels and like the smaller activity-based, 30-minute spots. I think they were geared primarily towards children, which incidentally something we absolutely must note. I think this was the first Trek event that I've been to that had a very large, very noticeable percentage of children attending. And I know that this was partly geared towards it, especially with Prodigy now being part of the over. But it was quite amazing to see like very little kids, we were talking like from toddlers up until early teens, really, really enjoying themselves, and their parents enjoying the whole thing along with them. Somebody called this a very wholesome event, and I have to agree with that.
I like that. I was just going to say, I really, for the queer people on this podcast, this was probably one of the gayest Star Trek conventions I've been to. And it's something that we as a community kind of talked about throughout the weekend, was like, do you remember the days when you'd go to a Star Trek convention and like everyone was closeted, or everyone was quiet, or there's like, here's a few people that maybe have a rainbow pin. And now like, there's no question, like we are there, we are visible. And I just love it. It feels like Star Trek has truly reached a more inclusive area, and not just the queer community. There were a lot of people of color. I know that the Reed Pop made sure that their moderators, which I'm sure we'll talk about, were all people of color, and I really appreciated that. This was just certainly a more diverse and accepting group overall, and I did notice that and really just find so much joy in that fact.
Yeah. As far as like what Heather, you mentioned, there were criticisms, and they were on different levels, which obviously, as many people there are, as many, so we're going to have as many opinions on pretty much everything. I know one thing that kept repeating over and over, people are like, well, why was it so empty? Where were the vendors? And I did get clarifications from some of our friends who were either vendors or they just they knew a little bit more about the behind the scenes stuff. People have to remember that this is a licensed show. So unlike Comic-Con, you will not get Etsy type artists and makers who would, obviously produce wonderful product, but it's not something that would appear at a licensed show. So you already have a natural sort of limitation to what kind of vendors you're going to have there. It was very nice to see the old favorites, those folks who you've been going to, to conventions for years. You will recognize them, like Intergalactic, for example. I've seen Intergalactic in Vegas for as long as I've been going. So that was very nice to see, familiar faces. And of course you get the The usual favorites. Fansets were there, for example. The Way
Mhm.
Mission was there.
Mhm.
All the wonderful products. We did get a lot of new stuff. Like I cannot pronounce, and I do apologize. That company that produced the boots, the Discovery boots.
Oh, I can't
Oh,
pronounce it
Oh,
either,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
That was amazing, and you could just go in, try it out. Yes, it was not a cheap product, but it was a real thing, and it looked absolutely extraordinary. I actually spent the entire Friday, specifically set aside Friday, to explore everything that was. So I stopped by every booth just to check out what was there. So yeah, so we were loaded with licensees. Not all of them were there. I understand that some of the licensed vendors had to pull out for various reasons before the convention, but we did get quite a lot. The science division was there, the Tribble people. So that was
Mhm.
very nice.
And I think you have to remember too that like as much as the pandemic impacted us as individuals, it's impacted those businesses as
Of
well.
course,
It's not
of course.
free
Oh,
to go to a show, right? So
no.
Yeah.
and create and get your products ready.
I want to shout out to Exo 6. They had some
Yes.
incredible reveals at this show, and I have yet to buy any of those, and I can't wait. Like some of those were so beautiful.
I have to say that this was probably my favorite booth, and I fansets. I love you guys, and I
I
made
love
sure to
you
stop by
dearly.
and pick up the exclusives. They had the exclusive pins, which were gorgeous, with the Chicago skyline, every great stuff. But Exo 6 literally hit it out of the park because the number of prototypes that they brought to exhibit, probably, I don't know, I think that's releases for the next, I don't know, around like what, next 2 years, probably all the way into
Yeah, I think so.
2024.
Mhm.
And it looked extraordinary. I mean, we had, the original series, like the motion picture characters in costume. Admiral, sorry, not Admiral, Emperor Georgiou with the whole
Ugh.
thing, with the cape and everything, Commander Cruz. Literally, my goodness, I saw Tuvok. It looks exactly like Tim Russ. The likeness is extraordinary.
Yeah, there were some people who got up and personal, and I saw some of those, and I was like, where do I spend my money? And then
I was snapping photos, like literally going through from booth to booth, because I'm like, people have to see this. There was some really, really amazing stuff on the floor.
Yeah, I especially loved their booth. And the first day when I stopped by, I remember seeing the Janeway doll, and it sold out. And I was like, oh, okay. And by Sunday, someone said, oh, I just bought a Janeway doll. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. They opened a
Um,
link. And as a matter of fact, as we're speaking, let me just double check. I'm almost positive that it's still active. So for those who are listening, whenever we're gonna post this, hopefully the Janeway figure is still gonna be available.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because after seeing her in person, here's my one thing. There's also a 7 of 9 coming out, and she's in the burgundy cat suit, which I'd much rather have a Picard 7 of 9.
I am sure we'll get there.
Well, and when that one comes out, I will be all over it. But after seeing them in person, I was completely sold, and I sure did snag one of those Janeway dolls, and she'll be here in a month or less.
Yay.
And I also I want Captain Archer just for the tiny Porthos that he comes
Yes.
with.
I mean, how amazing is that? I did not notice at first, and then I was like, wait, there's a dog.
It's so cute. I'm blown away. And I also wanted to shout out to Volante. Is it Volante or Volante Designs? I did not get to try on any of the jackets, and I'm so upset about that because I have wanted to for years, since they've been out, and they have never been at a convention that I've been at. And I just never got the opportunity. It's okay because I can't afford the prices, which are reasonable for the craftsmanship, but just I spent that money on the doll. I was like, the doll is for me this convention. But yeah, those booths, I really enjoyed having them there as official vendors, because we wouldn't have seen them, or at least I wouldn't have seen them at STLV.
Yes, something that was also unique for the vendor floor is, you already mentioned that we had the Strange New Worlds exhibit, which was marvelous. I mean, we got to see the costumes and some of the props. Of course, the skull collection from Star Trek Picard, that was pretty mind-blowing to see. And the prop store booth. I don't know if you had a chance to stop by, but that was very impressive. That's the costumes from Star Trek Picard that will be auctioned off at one of the prop store auctions, I believe in September of this year. So you actually had a chance to stop by and take a look. Actually, it's both costumes and again some of the props from the series. And the staff of prop store were there, so you could sign up for the newsletter for all the information in case you're able to bid in the auction. But besides, I actually treated it like a like sort of like Strange New Worlds. It was a museum visit just to take a look at the costumes. I have to admit, I never realized that Evan of Agora was this tall.
Oh my
It
goodness.
kind of shocked me
Yeah.
when I saw the costume. It kind of never registered, and I mean, yeah, he's a very tall gentleman, but the costume really kind of put it there.
On the flip side, Patrick Stewart's at the top of my list for photo ops, and he was not there, but his uniform was there and ready for a nifty photo op. So snag that, and he is so tiny.
He surprised me because I think I'm taller than he is. And when I met him for the photo op, I was like, what? I did do photo ops throughout the weekend. Once Kenneth Mitchell was announced for his final convention, and I hadn't gotten the opportunity. My friend Heather Maizahia, she and I did a photo op with him, and that was totally worth it. And then I can't remember all the different ones I did. Will Wheaton, Rafi, Lower Decks cast, like all kinds of fun. But it was just tough. Like for me, this convention was so much more about the fans, and like I guess they always are for me. But I feel like it was partially the con experience and partially just catch up with everybody.
Correct. Yeah, I think that was the difference. Those people who complained about the emptiness and somehow not enough to do, although I don't know, there was just so much stuff in the schedule. I found myself like literally being caught up in all the constant movement because there was almost, always something to do or somewhere to go or someone to see, precisely because we're already kind of part of the fandom, and there's again literally I could not make 20 steps without bumping into someone that in some cases I haven't seen in 2-3 years. So that part has been wonderful. I did do several photo ops, not as many as I mean, eventually I was like, oh, I wish I did this. But again, time just never worked. There was something else going on at the same time. I did wish I do the Lower Decks, especially on Saturday, because, well, that's when they had this extraordinary panel where they came out dressed as their characters.
Yes.
That was excellent. Watching that from afar, I got really excited because I saw Jerry O'Connell first walking around in his uniform. I'm like, oh, well, that's neat. He strikes me as someone who would do that. And then I saw the panel pictures and I'm like, oh my God, they all did it.
And that was just so, it was perfect. This was their very first Trek convention, and they completely just organically fit into the whole, brouhaha, because everybody was just so excited. The panel was, by the way, great fun. I think out of the new big panels, big spotlight panels, it probably was the most enthusiastic and the most was just generally funny because Lower Decks is a comedy. So it was just all laughing throughout. Obviously we've seen some of the exclusive stuff with the either teasers or some artwork. The show hosts were very careful every time to kind of say, please make sure you put your stuff away the moment we're showing something exclusive. No photos of the screens, no filming of the screens, obviously. And so far, I can't say, I'm pretty sure that nothing has leaked. So that's very nice to see.
Well, I got to tell you guys that if I was jealous, it was that day because like I'm older, so I've been following Jerry O'Connell for a while, since like 1988 when he did My Secret Identity as a kid. Because I wanted to be a kid who flew. We're about the same age, so it's not that bad. But then Sliders was on. And so when he went to Star Trek, it was kind of a natural evolution for him. But like there's two people I've been following. It's Jerry O'Connell and the Doctor Who guy. I can't remember his name, John Barrowman. And John Barrowman, I always end up going to somewhere he's just been at a convention. Like even when I went to Puerto Rico, there was a Puerto Rico Comic-Con like the day before where he was there. So
Yeah.
I just can't seem to catch up with him. But like, and Jerry O'Connell's another one who I didn't even know did conventions. So I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the same type of stuff in Vegas.
I would hope so. I mean, Jack Quaid has done quite a few conventions already as part of the boys, because he's that's well, I suppose it's considered a sci-fi show, correct? So he was in New York Comic Con, for example, last year, and I was like, well, maybe I should go because I'm sure he already has the Boimler stuff at his desk. Again, conflict. I had something else going on and I never made it, but so yeah, I do regret not getting Lower Decks photo op, but I did get same thing, Michelle Hurd. I really wanted to have a nice photo op without a screen with her, and she was just an absolute delight. Well, Kate, of course, as you know, a personal favorite. And of course, a must was James Cromwell, who hasn't done a convention
that was
in like
awesome.
20 years. So that was when the fact that they managed to get him, and I mean, he's an epitome of a gentleman. He was just such a pleasure to
And
meet.
he was dressed in the outfit. Well, kind of, unless that's how he dresses all the time.
No, it's just the way, it's just the way he dresses. Yeah, but he was lovely. I got to stop by, and I actually ended up getting multiple autographs because a lot of friends reached out to kind of say like, it's amazing. Who knows when he's gonna do another one again.
Yeah.
So we got to chat a little bit and got the photo op. Ron, did you do any photos this year, or you were just running around?
I did. So it's funny. I always go into this. I'm like, I'm only going to do a couple. So ahead of time, I had only pre-purchased Alexander Siddig, who was incredible. And I love the photo ops. It's one of my favorite ways to get interactions with the cast. And I really wanted to get Sneaker Martin Green. And I fully understand when they wear masks, I would wear one in their situation, but wanted to make sure they weren't wearing it in the picture. And she wasn't. So she was another photo op I got. Then I got a bunch of selfies because you're right there. I can't say no. So Connor Trenier was phenomenal. Ian Alexander, Michelle Hurd was just so nice and gracious. Tawny Newsome, Jack Quaid. My favorite selfie wasn't even with a Trek actor, with Jackie Cox, the drag queen who was on RuPaul. It was her show was phenomenal. So I couldn't wait to get a picture with her. I'm a huge RuPaul fan.
That was like that is the first licensed drag, like Star Trek drag show that we've had in an event. I am blown away, and I really hope that we get to see more awesome stuff like that. And I guarantee you that we will from Lambda Quadrant. I know we're already talking about STLV and what's going to happen there. So yay, Lambda Quadrant.
And for those who haven't been there, who haven't seen the picture of her dress was absolutely gorgeous.
Envy.
I don't know what it was made of, but
magic.
Yeah, beautiful.
Magic.
Yes.
I did not get, so here's and it's not a complaint. It was just that for me, I often did not find myself over near the autograph boot aisles, I guess we'll call them, alley. And so I had a lot of difficulty remembering to go like, oh, I can go walk over there, because my understanding, what I've heard now, is that a lot of the autograph lines were not super crazy. I know I did wait for Will Wheaton because he was late, but there wasn't a lot of like, unless it was when the celebrity first showed up or was a big name and on Saturday. So like James Cromwell, I think I could have gotten to say hi to him much easier than I just assumed he was going to be swarmed. And I was running all over the place. So, and then his panel was even in a smaller room. Yeah, what an intimate panel, you know?
Yeah, and in relation, I actually have two things to kind of mention. One was I did not go to his panel. As much as excited and thrilled I was that he's coming, and I really wanted to, his panel was staggered against the Lower Decks panel. So to avoid this sort of thing running between the two completely different things, and in the end not getting anywhere, I basically made the decision I'm going to stick with the Lower Decks panel. and then unfortunately miss his. That
Mhm.
was one thing that I was not crazy going in, because I knew that this was going to be one of those heartbreakings, like you have to make a choice where to go,
Mhm.
is the fact that the panels were staggered. And we all know that there's just no way to set up a schedule where you can please everyone, where people can go and see
No,
everywhere.
no.
That's unfortunate, that's a fact of convention going, and we just mitigated the best we can. Having said that, at the very least, this was far more relaxed than Mission New York. Mission New York had 5 things staggered against
Oh,
each
oh
other.
my gosh.
Here
Wow.
Wow.
we're at least had 3, so that was a little bit easier. And again, because of undercapacity circumstances, there was an opportunity. Those people who wanted to leave the main theater and run upstairs to one of the smaller rooms, check out what's going on there, and if nothing was going on to their taste, come back, they actually could in this case.
Yeah.
Next year, next convention, next mission convention, I suspect the attendance is going to be up, so chances are that's not going to be possible anymore. As far as autographing, something that has come up, and it sort of falls into this one category of criticism that I noticed online and just generally talking to people on the floor, is there was actually a bit of an issue with communication between ReedPop and the fans. And that actually, the area where it was very clear was in the autographing. There were several times when they would, well, first of all, let's start with, we have the convention website, we have the app, and then there were also printed schedules that were posted every morning in front of the autographing aisles. And very often the 3 would not match up.
Mhm.
So I was
Yeah.
like, well, I would like to get this autograph. When should I be there? And unfortunately, the Epic staff could only go by what they were told according to the printed thing. So, for example, I did stop by James Cromwell midday Sunday. He was supposed to be there, and he actually wasn't. He only came to the next time slot that was indicated on the schedule. So no explanations. Another thing that I noticed, and I can't really think another convention where this would happen, but again, there was no signage, nothing to indicate, is some of the guests, people would stand in line, get to the front, and suddenly discover that you can only get the autograph with the pre-purchase ticket. So it wasn't the
Yeah.
usual come in, put your $40 down, get the autograph. Oh, $40 or more, obviously,
Yeah.
but cash. And that wasn't the case in some cases. And that was obviously frustrating, because you would have to get out, run over to the Epic booth, get the ticket, and then come back. So that was a bit frustrating, I know.
I don't think that was even communicated to the handlers, because when Will Wheaton finally did come out, there was confusion and she thought I was buying a ticket there, but I was like, no, here's the ticket I just showed you. Like, this is what you need to scan or whatever.
Yeah.
So overall, I don't think that there was great communication across the board, and I can extend that even to panel organization. I am really glad that I reached out to Callie at Lambda Quadrant, who had a panel on Friday, to say, hey, what's the setup, because I know previously, depending where you are in Vegas, you might have like a green room or a little area where you can hang out beforehand and prepare, and there was nothing like that in the smaller panel rooms that were upstairs.
Yeah.
It was basically you walked up, and there were AV people that you spoke to, and they would help you out and tell you how to use the mics, but it was really just kind of no, you had to figure it out for yourself.
Something that I found entertaining, because this particular convention ran across the same thing that STLV already encountered, and that is, if you put Dr. Aaron in a very small room, you're going to have a huge overflow. And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
exactly what happened on multiple occasions. They really should not put her in smaller theaters.
No.
As far as just going down my little list of notes here. Oh, speaking of, well, not so much miscommunication, I don't even know how to term this, but there were certain points of confusion before the convention where people would reach out to customer service, which was very responsive. They would send you the replies. So obviously the people replying are at ReedPop's home base, which I'm assuming either Connecticut or maybe New York, probably Connecticut. And we would get a response that would be relatively vague. So it would be, this is not entirely what I asked. Like, for example, there was this whole issue, can we use the sky bridges? And the person replying to me said the entrance to the show is, and it's the main entrance to West Building off of one of the avenues. Now, shout out to Mike Armstrong of ReedPop. who was the one of the staff members right there in situ. He was one of the folks running the merchandise store and basically setting up everything. He was actually very helpful to set a lot of the records straight because he was right there. He actually saw what was in front of him, so he could direct and give pertinent information. But that was the sort of thing where it was like the customer service actually did not have the answers, as opposed to people who were actually in the physical space and knew what was where in real time. That was again slightly frustrating because at some point I think a lot of people kind of prepared to bring their jackets and walking through the street rather than using sky bridges. Let's see. Oh, speaking of hotels, this is sort of reminiscent to Vegas last year. Remember when, well, those of us who did go, we found that a lot of the usual places, especially food places, were either closed or working on limited hours, or just, I don't know, sort of like not willing to accommodate because obviously pandemic is ongoing. It was somewhat similar this time because a lot of the restaurants were closed. A lot of bars were closing very, very early. I think the Hyatt's bar, after some begging, we actually managed to extend the closing time by like hour and a half. And then Sunday, everything was just closed, period.
Yep.
And it seems that they, even though they knew the convention was in town, and to my knowledge, they were tipped off that, people are going to be staying in and they would like to have a nice open watering hole, yet they were unwilling to accommodate for some reason. So that was a somewhat curious experience because unlike Vegas, where we could all just, everybody can go on the strip or something. And well, let's face it, in Vegas, once they saw the people actually were indeed in the hotel in thousands, then they opened the places up. This time that it was like I ended up actually going someplace on Sunday night, even though I had a very early flight home because there was like literally nothing to eat.
So I ended up ordering Postmates Panda Express Sunday night.
Yeah.
There was nothing at the hotel, so I said, I have to get something. Let's just do this and do it quick.
My second panel was the very last panel of the convention at like 3:30 on Sunday, and I was exhausted after that and went up to my room thinking, okay, I'm going to go change and then go down to the Arc Bar and get dinner and have a nice relaxing night, saying goodbye to everybody. And I walked down and it is dead silent. There's no one there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy cow. So, I wound up thankfully finding a friend to go to dinner with. Shout out to Christopher. Hi. And then was messaging Dan and Bill over at Trick Geeks and saying, like, where are you guys going? I had run into Larry, which, bless your heart, Larry, I hope that you're feeling better because he was all sniffly at the end of this. And like, nobody knew what to do, where to go. And we were supposed to have a Portal 47 get together in Arc Bar after the convention was over. Yeah.
And obviously everything just went belly up because, well, that mini mart that they had, which, they did sell alcohol, but it kind of felt weird. Like, what do we buy a couple of bottles of beer and just stand in the middle of the corridor?
Yeah.
That's not really a meetup.
Yeah, no. And nobody knew where to go. And sadly, I think that the same thing is going to happen in Seattle, where the convention will be next year. Spoiler alert. Because there's just, unless there are, locals that can plan stuff ahead of time, and then we can remember to go. Like, I totally missed the Disco Does D&D hangout because it was unofficial and I didn't have it on a calendar. I just don't, with STLV, we're going back to the same place for the most part. We know the hangouts with these conventions, it's all different places. Yeah. So it's tough.
It's the strange thing that we're now going to have, now that we're going to have the mission conventions as a traveling show, that is. On one hand, this one parameter that's sort of like become a fixture for STLV experience. You have this one central point where everybody goes to. We have grown the atmosphere. We have this vibe going. And traveling show is not going to have this because every time you're going to be in a different location. So you're talking about multiple spots. A lot of the get-togethers are probably going to be spontaneous, sort of last minute, perhaps, unless the convention will return to Chicago, return to Seattle, return to, kind of start, we'll make it in sort of a circuit. On the other hand, the fact that it's a traveling show does give an opportunity for new blood to come in. Those
Mhm.
fans who do not have an opportunity to travel.
Yeah.
They can't go to Vegas, they cannot fly out to New York or to London or to wherever. Convention comes to them, and you get folks who who knows, they've never done an event, they've never met anyone,
Mhm.
or maybe they have, but that was like in the 90s. So it's going to be an interesting balance of sort of like, yeah, coming to a new place. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to Seattle, so I'm
Yeah.
actually very excited about this. And I'm told that the location is more downtown, so there are far many more eateries. So
Oh,
it's not
great.
going to be the same
Good.
situation like we have in Chicago.
Yeah, it's a good, they picked a good spot. Yeah, and you can, I think when you go to Seattle, you'll have the opportunity to actually do some sightseeing along with the convention.
Mhm.
Because like,
Yeah.
I know where they were in Chicago, everything's still kind of a
Yep.
ways, right? But
Far away.
but where they are in Seattle, like well, Seattle's kind of small as it is, but where they are, you'll be able to see all the big things.
I think to the destination kind of plays into it. You look at Vegas, it's a tourist town. Their
Yep.
primary focus is entertaining people from away. Seattle, Chicago, they have tourist industries, but so much of their conference business is actual business conferences.
Mhm.
Not so much looking at leisure travelers coming in looking for a group setting or a group bar.
Yeah. I would really love, I mean, the rumors that I've heard is that Repop will likely stick with the same Star Wars celebrations cities, which now have been like Anaheim and then Orlando, New York, Chicago, I
Yeah.
guess. I hope that in the spirit of Star Trek, they actually go to some smaller towns or cities and just places that could really be helped by that tourism and having the convention there. I think, especially going through this pandemic, being able to go to some less known cities and explore and give them our money would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that after this first success, right, the amount of people going will be more. So kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
You don't want one of those like what's the place in New York that has the Star Trek bridge?
Ticonderoga.
Ticonderoga,
Oh, yeah.
and they're like overrun most of the time. So let's hope we don't do that to a little city, because sometimes that hurts them too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we need a healthy city, but
Exactly, but you actually absolutely correct. Now that the people have seen how exactly this works, because let's face it, not everybody went to Mission New York, not everybody has experience with Reed Pop,
Mhm.
so they don't exactly know that every host has their own way of doing things, and that's the way this whole thing was set up. Yes, most certainly affected by pandemic and last moment logistics, but there are this whole thing with, for example, announcing guests much closer to the show. That's very much a Reed Pop modus operandi. So but now we've seen Chicago, so hopefully those folks who are planning to come back or planning to come for the very first time, they'll see that they do indeed put on a really good show. Something I wanted to point out that I've noticed, I haven't seen at other conventions. Did you notice that in the middle of the show floor there were cosplay changing booths?
yes,
That was
yeah.
new. That was so incredibly considerate.
Yeah,
Yes.
explain that to me. That I did not hear this.
Yeah, I bumped into this, and at first I thought it was some sort of like storage area or something, and then no, there were actually very nice signs saying that please, if the curtains close, that means somebody's changing, do not just barge in. And yeah, they created a little area, so if you needed to fix your costume, if you wanted to change the costume, for those who were doing multiple setups during the day, there you go, you had an opportunity. Instead of going all the way back to your hotel room and coming back, you had an actual little spot on the show floor. The way the food was inside the venue, I thought was very nice. Yes, we all know it's going to be pricier than if you were to go to a grocery store, but if you really were starving, after running around the whole day, there was a very nice little food court that had hot dogs, and I had a very nice sausage there, so I didn't try the pizza or anything else, but I was very pleased. And they had a nice sort of a ledge, like a cafe above the
Mhm.
level, that nice place to actually sit down, and you also had a very nice vista of everything that was going on the showroom floor.
Something that I also paid attention to was a very well-written, thought out, clear, large harassment policy,
Yes.
right? As you
Mhm.
walk in, I at least saw it once, if not twice. It might have been in numerous places. And I came across a sign, which I believe our dear Thad now has at home for all gender bathrooms,
Mhm.
which I greatly like. I took a picture because that stuff is important to me, and I really appreciated seeing a harassment. These are things I talked about being at STLV that, maybe they'll happen eventually, never probably, but it's important that we have those things at conventions. And so many sci-fives to read pop for, and they had an ASL interpreter
Yes.
in the main,
Yeah.
like in the main theater, at least for the larger panels. That was also wonderful. So, props to
Great.
read pop.
Yeah, so it seconded very much. So the anti-harassment policy, so that people know, actually would flash as they were cycling through various images or videos before a panel start in the main theater. It would come up like every so many minutes. The big signs, I saw at least 3 of them around the entire venue. So both outside, all the way at the entrance, we'd go through the metal detectors, and as well as inside on the showroom floor. Very nicely done. They had more than one ASL interpreter, as a matter of fact, depending on how many people would be present at the panel. So it wasn't something that was sort of planned ahead. They would actually let people know, okay, we have 3, 4, 5, however many fans coming in who will require these services. And so you would have 2, 3, 4 ASL interpreters show up, and there would be areas on either side of the stage set up specially as special chairs for those folks and the ESL interpreters, and the whole thing was just happening. And it was very nice. Anson Mount actually gave, he said, this is so incredibly nice, let's give a nice round of applause to this, because you can imagine how incredibly tiring it is to, have this insanity interpreted, in real time. But very nicely done. Indeed. Kudos to Reed Pop for doing this.
For the harassment policy too, it was impressive that you could report harassment through the mobile app. And
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yes.
responsive they were, but to see that ability, I think that was fantastic.
Thank goodness I didn't have to, and I hope that nobody else had to. Overall, though there were little mini bars that you could go get a drink on the show floor.
Yes, the
Which-
the Mugado Mule. I was so sorely tempted to try that, but it was in the middle of the day, and I was like, what? If I drink right now, I might just collapse somewhere.
After Saturday afternoon and standing back to back and all those photo op lines, I will admit I have not been drinking like much at all through this pandemic, but I legit had a glass of wine midday because I just needed something to kind of help calm my nerves. It was, it's still having not been around that many people was like, but yeah, just that, it was cool. But I think overall, like, people were very polite. I didn't get run into by people, certainly didn't get groped by anybody. The fans that attended all seemed really respectful of one another and kind, and I hope that was everyone else's experience.
There was just this genuine sense of goodwill overall, I would say, because again, we had a fairly large percentage of those who have never been to a convention or have never been to a specifically Trek convention, and those who have done it for the very first time, they were like, it's amazing how friendly everyone was. Again, talking to strangers, and they just get you. The whole thing, again, I am just so very pleased that children were very naturally part of this thing. It wasn't, there was never, I don't think, a moment where, oh goodness, now they're kids. No, they were actually, the panels, sometimes kids would go up and ask questions during the panel. That was delightful. How many of you went to the Prodigy panel, incidentally?
Did not.
I did not, sadly.
That was absolutely lovely. I think after Lower Decks, that was probably out of the spotlight panels, that was great. At some point, there was a little girl, Beatrice, who came up to the microphone, and she had a question about how long does it take to create one of the episodes, and Ben Hibon gave a very nice answer. And then of course Kate said, so who's your favorite character? And Murph. That became sort of a theme of the
I heard
day.
your doll's coming out, Marina.
Yeah, and it was hilarious. And Kate said, why? And she said, well, he's cute, and can we please have a plushie? And the whole place just exploded and started applauding like crazy. And I can assure you, there's probably like 90% of those people who were applauding probably did not have children, because we all want a Murph plushie.
Yes, yes, we do.
Mhm.
Oh, something funny to mention. So and we can touch upon this. It kind of ties in with the whole vendor thing. The official merchandise store was very nice. We got some nice T-shirts there and some other collectibles. And one of the T-shirts had Murph on it. They advertised it beforehand, sort of like, okay, here's the link to a section on the convention website where you can see the exclusives. And first thing, again, I did all my shopping on Friday. I went up. I'm sure it's a huge shock. I bought myself a Janeway shirt, but I also wanted the Murph one. And Mike said, we slightly miscalculated. We did not realize that there will be so many adults who would want a Murph merchandise. They only brought the T-shirts in youth sizes, only kids sizes. But immediately, that was a great thing. They reacted immediately. They put in the order, and there was a QR code at the counter where you can scan. It would take you to a website where you can pre-order an adult size Murph shirt. So that was great fun. But
let me ask a question about the vendors. So I know Anovos went, like, not either switched names or went out of business. I still can't figure it out. So there's the new one, but were they there at all?
No, Novus is that's it.
No, Novus is gone, but they like turned into, or they got bought out by this Denuo Novo.
No. That's, but they're not. They don't have any product right now. Everything that they're sending out, it's everything they're
still catching up
from years back. Yeah, but as an entity that right now they do not have any. They do not have a Star Trek license yet, and who knows when they're gonna have it, if they will at all. Just generally kind of going back, a lot of little things. So we got traditional Q&A panels. We did get, this nice little activity spots on the floor for kids that Dr. Aaron ran for the most part. So there were a lot of things that worked very nicely, and I hope they kind of continue, expand on it and evolve. Sunday morning, there was an Easter egg hunt, which was quite funny. I was passing through the show floor, and there was a plastic egg on the counter, or maybe on the floor, and it didn't register. I mean, it's a showroom floor. Let's face it, we're inside of a big concrete and metal box. It could be just a piece of garbage for all I know. And then as I'm passing by one of the vendors, they kind of lean towards me like, if you see plastic eggs anywhere, grab them. They just tweeted about it from one of the archivist Twitter accounts about this, that, there's going to be a fun little thing. And yeah, I did find one next to Valente booth, and there was a Dr. Tana pin inside, the San Diego exclusive that you can't really even find anywhere right now. So it's a nice little thing that somebody had a thought, why don't we do this? And it worked out beautifully, because people kept finding these eggs all over the place through the entire morning.
Well, that was fun. That was fun.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I saw it online. Like, everything I saw was online. I will tell you, everybody shares pretty well in a convention. I had no idea.
I found an egg with a Picard crest pin.
Hey,
oh, that's
cool. Isn't that fun? It's such a little thing, but it just makes the whole experience just a little bit more brighter.
And that was CBS themselves. That was Paramount, those people hooking us up. So we see you. We thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah. As far as the merchandise store, the big hit, of course, was the Geordie Bear from Lower Decks.
Yes,
that was just such a brilliant addition. And I would recommend to check out hold on, let me pull up the website. I think it was www.hole.com. I'll make sure that I actually have the correct, but whatever was remaining from the website, from the sales, so it's the remaining T-shirts, remaining bears, and everything. You could all find it here. My apologies. It's thehole.com. So THEHAUL.com. And you can pre-order that Murph shirt that I mentioned, as well as other shirts, and of course the Geordie Bear. So a nice little thing, although that's sort of something that ReadPop does. If you still have some of the collectibles and exclusives from a convention remaining, you typically can pick it up somewhere online later on.
I think that's
the first day of the convention. I noticed like the merch line was super crazy long, and I didn't make it there at all on Friday. So Saturday morning, I was very blessed that one of my friends who was sick, who I'm so sorry, that she was sick, gave me her VIP ticket. So with the VIP, which I'm glad I didn't spend $750 on it. You did get like an hour
Yeah.
entry before
Yeah,
the
I used that
attendees.
very much. So it was very nice to get on the floor before the crowds.
Yep. Saturday morning, I beeline down there and was like, is there a moratorium on how many Geordie bears you can buy? And they were like, no, buy as many as you want. And I was like, I'll take 5 because, you know, a lot of people like you, Marina, asked me to help them out and grab one. So I wound up getting 5. I got 3 for other people, 1 for me, and 1 as a just in case bear.
I like that, just in case bear. It's an emergency.
I was like, by Sunday, like, okay, I've got all the bears I need. So I gave it to my roommate, Crystal Laughlin, who is expecting a daughter. She announced her pregnancy at the convention. So that was super amazing. And I have to quickly shout out to my friends Chad and Jennifer, who got engaged at the Janeway statue. They met on Trek Twitter, and so it's like they met through one of my Follow Friday, like meet the community thingies, and I'm just it like the feels from this and getting to spend time with them in person, and then that happening. Congratulations to everybody. It was just so many good things on top of it just being a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
So as I was saying before, we got pretty much an experience across the board. There were proper Q&As, there were presentations, there were nice little things. A lot of fan get-togethers were indeed sort of planned very closely, but they did happen. Group photos in front of that nice little delta right at the entrance to just, get-togethers at the restaurants and bars. I mean, Saturday night was hopping at Arc Bar and Hyatt. I was basically, what would you call it? Table hopping, because everybody was there. Lambda was there and Trek Geeks were there, and you just go, Sci-Fi Sisters. You just go from one corner to another, and there is somebody to say hello to. Kate Mulgrew did a book signing, so this was a nice thing. And again, I'm looking forward to what they will come up with in Seattle. Perhaps they will have more exhibits, perhaps, because nobody said you just have to have all the brand new stuff. That's obviously exciting, but maybe they can pull up stuff from CBS archive. Like we've had this in Vegas before, but vary things up a little bit. You did mention the photos at the captain's chair. There were actually 2 captain's chairs. So there was a Prodigy captain's chair, and there was a Strange New Worlds captain's chair.
I missed them both. Oh,
yeah, it was right next to it was right next to, they set it specifically between the food court and that little area with the they called it the family HQ. So that's the area where Dr. Erin would do her little experiments and presentations for kids. So it kind of made sense that you would put Prodigy stuff there. You had to be very careful sitting on that captain's chair, by the way, because it was very wobbly. It has this very unusual shape, and I sat down and I almost collapsed.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But those were fun. So all in all, I'm very pleased. I'm finally kind of like, I'm trying to not to set aside like, well, what didn't work. We already mentioned the somewhat miscommunication between the different parts, the website versus the app versus what we're told on the floor, and some of the things that were not exactly marked very clearly was like autographing, for example. Something that came as a bit of an unpleasant surprise for me personally was the fact that I'm just gonna say it. I think the panel hosting was actually done very poorly. I am glad that they went out and they found folks to represent diverse groups. So we did get. I've heard some of the names of these hosts before from other conventions, but my personal opinion is that there did not exactly fit the atmosphere of a Trek convention. Out of the 3, only one was actually familiar with Trek, and she kind of admitted, she's like, this is my first convention. I'm assuming she meant first Trek convention. But just generally the sense of humor, some of the statements, it just didn't work. And specifically what I'm talking about, if you attended the Strange New Worlds panel, I can totally see that Anson Mount was not amused on multiple occasions during it.
Yeah. So, don't make the guests uncomfortable. And I just wish there was a little more thought in hiring people with the higher ups who organize this. Like there are so many options out there, like any of the women at Warp.
Yeah.
Jesse Gender, like there are so many people out there that
Yeah, I mean, we literally within the fandom, those who are known Trek, pardon the pun, Trek geeks. But yes, women at Warp, Amy Imhoff,
Mhm.
Angelique Roche. If you
Mhm.
absolutely must to have someone who's sort of already established, why not go to Ian Spelling? He's probably one of the best interviewing professional journalists who really knows how to interview people without dissolving in fangirling.
Micah
To be
Burton,
blunt.
even like
Yeah,
Even
that's
Chase Masterson
Micah
is
would be
Chase, yes.
yeah. So there are already folks who are like, we know that they're part of the family. They know how to do stuff. They know how to read the room. They know how
Mhm.
to stop unusual questions
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
the audience. So, but in this case, I mean, on the positive side, they had a very nice flow of questioning in the sense that there was like half of the panel, let me rephrase it, half of the question sort of like time was prepared, so those were not just random questions from a host. They did come prepared with specific things that they wanted to bring up, and then the rest of the Q&A time was given to the fans. That part worked. Everything else was creaky croaky. The gentleman who entertained the crowd before, I know him from New York Comic Con, I know him from I believe Awesome Con. That sort of thing does fit more with the Comic-Con when you have multiple genre show, everything goes. It's not entirely fitting in with track. So that is most certainly something that Britpop will need to rethink. There was a person, one of the staff members from Britpop, actually taking some feedback from the VIPs lining up on Sunday morning. So I did get to have a little chat, sort of like point out, and I wasn't the only one. I think she must have spoken to about, I don't know, 50 people, maybe even more. Because at some point I just went inside, once they led the queue into the showroom floor. But it was very nice because at least that shows that Reed Pop is interested in progressing it into evolving the show, seeing like what they can do differently. So I did overhear quite a few folk kind of bring up, okay, well, this is what they do in Vegas, or this is what they do on the cruise, which I suppose it's always an unfair comparison with the cruise. The cruise is a thing apart. They have completely different capabilities and just generally setup of the show, but at least it gives ideas. So it's I'm very curious to see what Repop will bring to the plate next year in Seattle, which is coming. It's going to be May 26th through 28th, 2023. Going to be really exciting, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Making that one actually. So I did. I mean, if it wasn't for me being at the cruise, I would be a lot more depressed now. But I got my fill of the hugs and the love, So and I saw a lot of the same people. I feel bad I missed the newer people, but we'll see each other again, I'm sure. So
yeah, it's nice that it's not as close to the cruise next year. So at least we have a couple of months in between, because having licensed show this close to each other, it's a little bit tough to schedule.
Yeah. The other thing too is like I started a new job, so like it was kind of getting a little crazy telling my boss, okay, so I'll be gone this day and that day. Like I've already used all my vacation and it's only April. So.
I know that with those of us who have gone to STLV for so long, especially, and then have maybe tried a cruise or tried another convention, there's a big fear of missing out because all of your friends are there literally, and you're not. I sat out the cruise. I don't know if I'll ever be able to make that happen. I really, really want to, just for the experience. And I think being on a boat for a week is different than being in a casino for a week.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's like, I want to do them all at some point, but at least for now, I'm going to stick with Mission Chicago and STLV, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, indeed.
I personally was so sad. It's Memorial Day weekend is so hard for me to get away. So there's unfortunately no way I'll be making it next year, which is too bad. I'd love to see this thing in its second year. I think it's only going to take off because it was such a good start. Considering it was their first year doing this, it was a fantastic convention.
It's a bit rough too. I'm just guessing, but like, no, I think I've talked to some people. So like, new venue, new place, right? So you have limited amount of time to get your marketing up, get your decorations up, get your props up, and then get the sound set up, get the sound tested, get the chairs up. I mean, that is a big undertaking. And at the Rio, at least, creation kind of, you know, had a rhythm because it's the same place. Like they're going to have the same struggle this year too, right? So I'm always like bow down to these folks who can get all that stuff together. You know, it's similar to the cruise. You know, they got like 4 hours to get a ship decorated for 2,000 people. And that's why you can't really equate the cruise to anything else, because it's a limited amount of people, it's a limited amount of space. But what Reed Pop does, and if they're doing it different venues all the time, I mean, hats off. I think that's I think it's great. I just think it's a lot of investment on their part to get it done.
I think you add to that too the fact that COVID has been such a real thing over the past year. You know, since they announced this, we saw the Delta variant, the Omicron variant, and I admire them for waiting until the last minute to make a lot of guest announcements. You know, I think Vegas last year, we saw so many cancellations at the last minute. It's hard for people to plan, and waiting until the last minute, ensuring people are there. I know they had vendors pull out at the last minute that had COVID concerns, not knowing what's open. Given that handicap, they did a great job.
Yeah. That sounds good. So, Marina, I think should we start wrapping up a little bit?
Yes, we basically covered all the stuff. I mean, you know, obvious things as far as visiting the city, that's going to be a bit too much of a discussion, because obviously there's a whole lot of stuff. You know, if you decide to come visit, well, Chicago was this year, next year in Seattle, and decide to go see something, that's probably going to be something that you arrange on yourself. This is not exactly the same as you would do in, say, Vegas, like when we would.
Well, let me say, if for the folks who listen, you probably know the Malamays from Seattle, so they're probably good people to go to say what is there to do in Chicago, and I'm be surprised
in Seattle.
I'm sorry, in Seattle, and they'll be. Last time I went to Seattle, they kind of planned my trip for me, so reach out to them in the groups, the various groups, because I'm sure they've got some ideas.
Oh, sorry to kind of jump back a bit. We mentioned decorations, so there weren't as many extensive ones. It was mostly like banners or sort of like this standing things that had mostly signage on them. But the interesting thing that I discovered is that some of this stuff was probably traveling or going to be reused, but because a lot of it was branded specifically Mission Chicago, it's not exactly something that apparently they can or even want to reuse. So, you know, if there were any fans around, they literally just said, do you want that panel? Take it. So I saw quite a few fans walking away carrying, you know, like somebody was walking around carrying, you know, Picard, you know, that arch above the entrance to the showroom floor that had panels of various track actors. All of those were pulled down and given to fans. So that was kind of
what surprised me was like, and sorry, I'm not picking on creation, but creation usually does the auction on all those.
Well, on some of them, because the stuff that you obviously can reuse when you already have a nice printed thing advertising the event, you know, why not do that? But in this case, yeah, I was surprised about the characters though, because they did not have the name. It was just like a nice sort of like in the cartoony style, nice little panel with that was Consular Troy, there was 7 of 9, there was Captain Picard. Different shapes. It was part of that little arch decoration, and yeah, people were, you know, just go ahead, take it.
You're just at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I know. I bumped into one of my friends, Johnny. He was carrying, I think, Captain Picard or Deanna Troy. I forget. And I was like, and he just explained. He's like, yeah, they just said take it. So yeah, here we are. Well, I think we should be wrapping up, because we covered for the most part all the salient points, I think. So any last minute thoughts?
I'm just feel real bad I wasn't there, but I'll plan on it next time. I'll control myself on vacation in the future.
What about you, Ron?
One thing we didn't mention, you said the word character, and that reminded me, they had Doll walking around.
Oh, yes. Oh,
which
gosh.
I would love to see more of that. I want a picture with Murph, the Lower Decks characters. The cartoons are perfect for that. I'd love to see more of that.
That was a stroke of genius, because I'm sure that was probably the thought was, well, the kids are going to go nuts. but as you can imagine, it was the adults that went nuts. I mean, the kids were as well, obviously, they kind of probably expected this, but the moment people saw, and it was a very, very nicely done cosplay. I mean, it was literally felt like a cartoon come alive. It's unknown who was inside. I don't think the person was ever introduced, but they did an amazing job, and they were on the stage with Ben Hibon, Dan Hageman, Kate. He was sitting in the sofa and just kind of like gestured. He wasn't talking. But yeah, that was great. That was great.
But yeah, other than that, it was a fantastic event. It's always fun to see everybody, and just 3 days goes by so quickly. And I swear I suffer from something called face blindness. So I know there were people there that I talked to that I just, with masks, and it's so hard to recognize. I felt so bad. Somebody posted on Facebook and I absolutely loved it. And that was like, after the last 2 years, after everybody's been through, even extroverts are struggling to figure out how to make friends again and how to interact with people. And definitely felt that at this convention a little bit.
We've talked about that on the show before. So before the cruise, I took a practice vacation, if you will, just to see how it was to be around people again. And it's weird. So like from getting to the airport to getting to a place where there's crowds, we've spent the past couple of years not looking people in the eye, looking at only masks. So we're not seeing people talk as they talk, right? We have to kind of listen a little more intently. And so when I got around the Star Trek crowd the first time, it took me a day. It took me a day to kind of get used to being around people again and looking people in the eye. We've lost a lot of our nonverbal communication over the past couple of years. So stuff like this will hopefully get us back on track. So
I told so many people that I love them. And I was not drinking. Like, this was totally sober, Heather. Like I've said it over my years of podcasting, like my Star Trek family is my family. And I really missed everybody. And I felt so disconnected. So getting this opportunity to reconnect with so many people on top of meeting online friends for the first time, just like the days were draining. Like I said, like I would pour my cup, like I would have an empty cup, but at the same time, it would just fill back up from all of the love that was coming back at me. So I think we're already like 134 days from Vegas. And I am super excited to get to see everyone again, once again, in a new environment, which we'll see what that's going to be like. I'm actually really excited.
I'm excited about it just because it puts you more in the center of Vegas, right? So there'll be more to do and less Uber rides, I'm hoping. So
yeah, that's exactly the way I'm looking at it. It's literally walking distance to all my favorite restaurants now. So that alone makes me very excited. But yeah, what you said, Heather, reminded me. I think there's a quote from Leonard Nimoy. The more you give away, the more you have.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. This whole 3 days was most certainly not enough to catch up.
Not enough. No,
I mean, it was just even like stopping by like to chat for 5 minutes. It was like, oh, I wish we could just continue talking. But
there are people who were there that I didn't know they were there. And I was like, how do you miss people? But again, like one day it will be the Trekkie convention that is only for Trekkies to get together and hang out. There's no celebrities. Like the Trekkie family reunion. I don't know. Thank goodness for social media. That's all I can say.
Yes, that's very true. Well, here we are. Again, looking forward to next year. Star Trek Mission Seattle. Until then, more events. Hopefully the convention circuit will truly come alive, and nothing horrible. No further waves. Let's please.
No.
Everybody keep safe.
And we're getting our groove back. So Marina and I will be back for a preview of Vegas episode and then a retrospect. So it's nice. I've talked to Marina now like 4 times this month. So
yeah, well, because finally we do have in-person events. I mean,
stuff going on. So
the Trek events list that I usually try to put together has pretty much stopped being virtual. I mean, there's still events happening online, but a lot of the in-person events, like conventions or talks or presentations, have really come back, and it's nice to see. I mean, on one hand, it would be nice that we continue to have a virtual component, again, primarily for just a variety, and b, of course, for those people who cannot attend in-person events for various reasons. But nevertheless, it's kind of nice to see that things are a little bit, we haven't done a review like this for a convention in what feels like years.
Yep.
So isn't that wonderful?
No, this will be great. So I guess, Marina, we can go around the room.
Yes, of course. So Heather, where can people find you online?
Please come find me pretty much on Twitter. I'm at Batleth Babe. I have a program called Fans Give Back, which is at Fans Give Back, where I try to do good things for Trekkies around the world, to put it lightly. And then now I am a Trektivism ambassador for Trek Geeks Trektivism campaign, which is kind of started with the John Billingsley's Hollywood Food Company drive and that whole event. And we're just going to start trying to inspire people to help change the world and do Star Trek for real.
All right.
Awesome.
Ron, where can people find you online?
So I am on Twitter at TrekkerRon. I'm also the new host of the Con Pod podcast, which is another Star Trek convention podcast, part of the Trek Geeks Network.
All right. Jesse, where can people find you?
I am on Facebook. I'm at Outrageous Okendo, and I always ask people just to look on the podcast to see how to spell it, because I'm getting bad at it. I pick too many letters. And I'm also, like all of us, an admin of the Star Trek Convention Experiences group. So you can always find me there, and I'm kind of all over the place and not everywhere. So if you look, you will find me.
Yes, and you also admin the cruise groups, correct?
Yes, I am one of the admins of the Star Trek cruise groups. And so we have started our Cruise 6 group, which is next year. So, I'm staying busy.
And you can find me on Facebook as well as on Twitter and Instagram at Dracorex, DRAKKOREX. And I also admin the unofficial Star Trek Missions Convention, which was a tiny little group that was created for the Mission New York, which suddenly became useful and needed and blew up, kind of like, I think it's at like 1,000 people within the last 3 weeks. But it's we'll see where that takes us, so wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. It was so great to see you in person, and until the next one, keep trekking, everyone.